I never thought a dog could change our marriage. But now every morning she goes for a walk and I'm left with silence and a heaviness in my heart. I stood by the window watching her leave, the leash in her hand, bright sneakers on her feet, her hair gathered in a messy bun. The dog eagerly pulled forward and she, laughing, adjusted the collar. This became our new ritual. I drink coffee, she goes for a walk. Mornings used to be our time, now they belong to her and the dog. I thought the small change was for the better. She was alive again, full of energy. She said the fresh air helped clear her thoughts. I was happy for her, though I didn't quite understand why she craved these morning runs so much. One day I offered to join her. She smiled, but I noticed a hint of embarrassment in her eyes. This is me and the dog's time, she cut me off, kissed my cheek, and quickly walked out the door. I took a sip of coffee, but it tasted bitter. Later, I tried to rationalize her behavior. Maybe she just needed freedom. Maybe I really am too boring? Maybe I can't share her enthusiasm? I wanted to believe everything was fine. But one day, while I was sitting in the kitchen, my phone vibrated. A message from a neighbor. I opened it and time stopped. On the screen, a blurry photo, her in the park hugging a stranger. My heart clenched and my thoughts became tangled. Who is he? Why didn't she tell me? My head buzzed. I looked at the empty coffee cup and a chill ran down my spine. I didn't know how to ask her about it or if I even wanted to know the answer. All day, I couldn't get the photo out of my mind. I kept zooming in, examining every pixel, hoping to find an explanation. Maybe it's just an old friend? A colleague? But why hadn't she ever mentioned him? When she returned from her walk, her face was glowing. The dog rushed into the house and she began cheerfully talking about how the dog finally learned the lie-down command. I nodded, trying not to reveal my anxiety. Her words didn't register, there was a ringing in my ears. I wanted to ask, but my tongue felt tied. Later, I checked her social media, nothing suspicious. Her smile in the photos was just as genuine. I started convincing myself that maybe I was just overthinking. But the next day, it all happened again. She went for a run and I was left alone with coffee and my thoughts. The neighbor called when I was contemplating how to start a conversation. His voice sounded slightly apologetic. Listen, sorry about yesterday. I thought you should know. I saw them again this morning. They seem to often walk together. My heart pounded in my chest. I forced myself to ask. They, how? Just jogging side by side. Sometimes laughing. But they looked quite close. I thanked him and hung up. I stared at the leash hanging on the hook by the door. One thought stuck in my head, if it was innocent, why didn't she say anything? The next morning she was getting ready for a run again. I noticed her taking longer than usual, sorting through shirts and leggings. Usually she didn't care, comfort was the priority. But today she picked the new shirt, the one I gave her for our anniversary. You're taking your time today, I said, feigning indifference, trying to catch her reaction. She turned and smiled. Just refreshing my wardrobe. I had to wear this shirt sometime, right? When the door closed, I sat on the bed, replaying her words, her tone. Why had a regular jog suddenly become an event that required a special look? When she returned, I noticed something new. Her hair was slightly damp, as if she had washed it elsewhere. Did you shower after the run? I asked. Yeah, there's a new fountain in the park with cool water, she replied without meeting my eyes. I nodded, but something pinched inside. I knew the park inside out, there were no fountains. That evening, I gathered the courage to ask. Did you run alone today? Yes, of course. Just me and the dog, she replied too quickly, forcing a smile. I froze. Her words didn't match what the neighbor had said. Why was she lying? What was her secret? Inside, the feeling grew stronger that I no longer knew her, didn't know where she went every morning or what really happened during those runs. The next day, I decided to do things differently. She got ready for her run, habitually tying her hair and putting on the new sneakers she bought a few weeks ago. I noticed a grass stain on the white sole, it wasn't there yesterday. Going to the fountain again today? I casually asked. She paused for a moment, then nodded. Yeah, it's so refreshing in the mornings. I watched her leave, and this time I didn't stay home. Quietly grabbing my jacket, I followed. Careful not to be seen, I kept my distance, hiding behind cars. My heart was pounding, my breath hitching from the tension. When she reached the park, I stopped behind some bushes. She walked past the fountain, empty, overgrown with moss, and headed toward the running track. Soon, I spotted him, a tall, tanned guy with a short haircut. He was holding a leash, the dog happily bouncing around him. I pressed myself against the tree, trying to steady the trembling in my hands. She approached him and he smiled too warmly, too friendly. They exchanged a brief phrase and she laughed. I couldn't hear the words, but I saw her face animated, joyful. I returned home before she did, sat on the couch and tried to process what I had seen. Maybe I was wrong? Maybe I was just imagining things? But then why the secrecy, the little inconsistencies? One thing became clear, I couldn't just wait anymore. I had to find out the truth even if it turned out to be painful. I watched her leave, and this time I didn't stay at home. Quietly grabbing my jacket, I followed. Carefully, so she wouldn't notice, I kept my distance, hiding behind cars. My heart pounded, my breath faltered from the tension. When she reached the park, I stopped behind some bushes. She walked past the fountain, empty, overgrown with moss, and turned onto the running track. Soon, I saw him, a tall, tanned guy with a short haircut. He stood holding a leash, the dog happily bouncing around him. I pressed against the tree, trying to calm my trembling hands. She walked up to him, and he smiled too warmly, too friendly. They exchanged a few words, and she laughed. I couldn't hear the words, but I saw her face, lively, happy. In the evening, I finally made up my mind. She was drying her hair in the bathroom when I came in, trying to look relaxed. Her sneakers lay on the floor, still damp and covered with grass. "How was the run?" I asked, trying not to reveal the shake in my voice. "Great," she responded, peeking out from behind the door. The dog almost learned not to pull on the leash. I nodded slowly, as if processing her words. Then I added, "Did you run alone again today?" This time, the pause was slightly longer. She peeked out again, not hiding a hint of irritation. "Of course. Who else would I run with?" I could see she was trying to be convincing, but her eyes avoided mine. "That guy, the trainer, right? Does he also walk with his dog?" A hint of confusion appeared on her face, which she quickly covered with a forced smile. "Oh, Jason? Yeah, we ran into each other a few times. He's helping train the dog." I didn't think it was important. That night, I couldn't sleep. Why had she lied before? If there was nothing between them, why keep it a secret? The next morning, she went for a run again. I approached the window and saw her, after turning the corner, take out her phone and text someone. I waited for the answer to my inner question, who? When she came back, I didn't ask any more questions. Her smile was too bright again, as if masking something. But I knew one thing: trust is fragile. And once it's broken, it's almost impossible to restore. The next day, I finally gathered the courage to speak directly with the neighbor. When I went over, he invited me into the kitchen, seemingly guessing why I had come. "Is it about your wife?" he cautiously began. I nodded, feeling cold grow in my chest. "Yeah. Look, maybe I shouldn't have sent you that photo. They just looked too close." I tried to remain calm. "Did you see them today?" "Yeah, in the morning. They were running together again, laughing." At one point, she even rested her head on his shoulder for a moment. Those words cut through me like a knife. I tried to make sense of what I had heard, but my mind was chaos. I thanked the neighbor and left, feeling betrayed and empty. At home, I noticed her sneakers by the door clean, as if she had deliberately wiped them before coming in. I carefully touched the soles, no grass, no dirt. Strange. Yesterday, they were dirty after running. Why had she suddenly started cleaning them so thoroughly? In the evening, I started a conversation again. "Did you go for a walk today?" Of course, she leaned back on the couch, petting the dog. The park was almost empty, just me and the dog enjoying the quiet. I felt a sharp pain in my temples. "Did you meet anyone?" "No," she answered quickly, not even pausing to think. A suspicion pierced through me. I decided to check her phone when she went to shower. Yesterday's conversation with someone named Jason was gone. Clean, just like her sneakers. When she returned to the room, I pretended to be reading the news. She noticed my tension but didn't say a word. I wanted to ask directly, but I was afraid that the truth would be worse than my suspicions. At night, I lay in bed, listening to her steady breathing. She slept peacefully, as if untroubled by anything. And I couldn't stop thinking. Anxiety had become my constant companion. What did I do wrong? Why was she now happy without me? The next day, I didn't hide anymore. In the morning, when she was putting on her sneakers, I said directly, "I'm coming with you." She froze, as if not expecting that. "You? Really?" Her smile seemed forced. "Yes. I want to see what you do there." She stayed silent, and I caught a glimpse of something like panic in her eyes. But a second later, she nodded. "Fine." When we stepped outside, she walked slightly faster than usual. The dog pulled ahead, as if sensing the tension. We reached the park, but none of her familiar jogging companions were there. She looked around, clearly searching for someone, but finally pretended that everything was fine. When we saw Jason by the bench, he noticed us and seemed embarrassed, but quickly masked it with a look of indifference. "Hi," he called cheerfully. She replied, "Oh, hey, Jason. This is my husband." I looked at him coldly. "Do you often run with her?" I asked directly. He hesitated. "Well, yeah. We bumped into each other a few times. She asked me to help train the dog. I felt a chill inside. Really? I looked at her. She smiled nervously. Yes, I told you. When we got home, she approached me with a guilty expression. I'm sorry. I just wanted a little freedom. These runs, they made me feel different. I didn't know how to respond. The silence hung between us like a concrete wall. I didn't know if we could ever be close again. That evening, I tried to talk to her calmly. She sat on the couch, petting the dog, avoiding my gaze. I just want to understand, I began. Why did you hide him? Why did you lie? She sighed as if gathering courage. I thought you wouldn't understand, she said softly. I didn't want you to get jealous. But I am jealous. Do you get that? I couldn't help it, my voice cracked. I can't understand why you would leave every morning like you needed to escape. She closed her eyes, gripping the leash. It all started with walks, she whispered. I just wanted to teach the dog something. But then, it felt good to feel needed. Jason, he praised me. Said I had a talent for training. That I was good at it. I never said you were bad, I objected, but she shook her head. No, you don't get it. With you, I'm ordinary. With him, I'm someone else. It's easier to breathe. I was silent, realizing she wasn't blaming me, she was blaming herself. So it's not about him? I asked. She nodded, looking down. I didn't fall in love with Jason. I just, for a moment, felt like a new version of myself. I found it hard to breathe. I realized it wasn't just about her, but also about me. I had mistaken her happiness for stability, her silence for calmness. When she went to bed, I stayed on the couch, thinking about her words. Now, I was no longer afraid of Jason, I was afraid that I might lose her forever if I didn't help her find herself. In the morning, I decided to talk to her calmly, without accusations. I'm sorry for how I reacted yesterday, I started. I just didn't understand. She sighed, lowering her gaze to her mug. I know I was wrong. I should have been honest about my feelings instead of hiding behind morning runs. I moved closer. You said you feel different with him. Why? She shrugged. I don't know. At first, it was just fun walking the dog. Then I realized that during those moments, I forgot about the daily routine, about being just a wife, just an employee. I felt free. Why didn't you tell me you were feeling bad? I asked, bitterness in my voice. I was afraid you'd think I stopped loving you. But it wasn't you, I just stopped loving the version of myself that I had become. Her words echoed in my mind. I understood that the struggle wasn't with Jason, but with the emptiness inside her. And until she found herself, there was nothing I could fix. I'm willing to wait, I said, reaching across the table. She placed her hand in mine, and I felt her trembling. We sat there for a long time, in silence, realizing that love is not just happiness but also the ability to admit mistakes and find a way back to each other. A week passed after our conversation. I felt the connection between us growing again, fragile but real. We didn't hide the awkwardness, didn't pretend everything was immediately back to normal. She kept running in the mornings, but now she often invited me to join her. One morning, I decided to go with her. I wanted to be part of her journey to find herself, not just stand on the sidelines. We threw sticks for the dog together, sometimes jogging slowly. She told me about a new trick she was teaching, and I saw a spark of joy in her eyes. At one of the turns, we saw Jason. He slowed down, noticing me by her side, and smiled awkwardly. Hey, good to see both of you, he said. Hi, she replied calmly, but now her focus was on me. We walked past without lingering. I squeezed her hand and she smiled, gently pulling me along. That evening, I decided to write down my thoughts about us, about how I felt, about how hard it was to cope with her changes. I realized that I, too, needed to find a new meaning in our shared life. When she saw the notes, she was surprised at first, but then sat next to me and asked me to read them. I shared my feelings of jealousy, how hard it was for me to accept that her happiness wasn't always connected to me. She hugged me. You're not boring. We just forgot how to be ourselves around each other. I realized that it didn't matter what we had gone through. The important thing was that we found our way back to each other. We were learning to be honest even when the truth was painful. And finally, I understood, her freedom didn't mean losing me. It was a chance to be together, real, genuine, and alive.